Welcome back, everyone. What a great day we've had here. We have one more presentation. We're going to end strong with this conference today. I want everyone to welcome first Graphene. It trades on the OTC Pink sheets under the symbol FGPHF and the ASX, the Australian Stock Exchange, under the symbol FGR, and is a leading supplier of high-performing graphene products with a robust manufacturing platform based upon captive supply of high-purity raw materials and an established 100-ton-a-year graphene production capacity. Joining us is the chairman of First Graphene, Warwick Grigor. Welcome, Warwick.
Thank you, Anna. So I'll welcome to everyone else who's taken the time to sit into this presentation. As the title tells us, it's delivering the graphene revolution, driving industrial scale adoption of graphene with the emphasis on industrial scale. To give you a bit of background, I was previously chairman of Canaccord Genuity in Australia. And I departed from that. I retired to pursue the building of a new business, and that was the graphene business. At that time, I had been funding up to 4 different graphene ventures because while I knew it was going to be a great product of the future, I didn't know which was going to be the most successful company. So I used a basket approach. After being involved for over 4 years now, I'm firmly of the opinion that First Graphene is the company most likely to succeed. Hence, I've taken on the chairmanship and I'm presenting to you today. First Graphene has basically de-risked all of the technical aspects of graphene production. What we are doing now is moving on to building the sales book. That's what we want to build to become profitable and as soon as possible. Capital cost is not an issue for us. We've spent the money required to give us the production capability. It's now about turning that production into profits. So what is graphene? You may already know, but for those of you who don't, it's a nanomaterial. It's the smallest known material to man. In its perfect form, it's 1 atom thick, but we generally use the definition of 1 to 10 atoms thick as true graphene. It's an additive. You don't use graphene for anything on its own. You add it to concretes, polymers, fire retardants, generally at the rate of about 1%. And what it does is whatever you're adding it to, it makes that material perform so much better. But what's so great about graphene? Well, if you read the literature, there's all sorts of superlatives. It's 100 times more conductive than copper, 200 times stronger than steel. It's transparent. It's thermally conductive. Electrically, one of the greatest conductors you can get. And you can see on that slide there all the different features that you should be looking at. But there's one which we don't really mention there that people don't talk about, but it's becoming more and more apparent how good it is, and that's fire retardancy. Whatever you're putting graphene into, it gets enhanced fire retardancy. That just comes free of charge. Now, graphene's been around for about 15 years. I doubt whether there's any company in the world actually making profits out of graphene at the moment, but we're on the cusp of changing that. The biggest obstacle we saw when we first got involved in the business a few years back was reliability of supply. No industry is going to adopt a new material like graphene unless they can be certain of supply. So while a lot of companies are running around saying they're doing this great product and that great application, we saw the weakness in their business models was so often actually getting good, reliable, high-quality graphene. So that's what we focused on. We now can make 100 tonnes per annum of high-quality powdered graphene in our Perth facility. But not just volume, the reliability, consistency from one batch to another is something that as a major obstacle to a lot of people in the graphene industry. Our process is not batch driven, it's a continuous process. We have inline sampling so that we can sample millions of sample points at any one time to ensure that the graphene the customer is ordering is the graphene that they will get. That's been a big problem with batch manufactured graphene. Companies have said to us, well, we've ordered it from this company in January and we ordered some more in February and it wasn't the same material. So we've addressed that issue. Some people said a few years back that the biggest problem with graphene is that it's too expensive. Well, let's debunk that myth. The improvements that you get using graphene far outweigh any cost consideration. And we have not had one of our customers say to us it's too expensive. It's not about cost. It's about reliability and quality. So we are the world's leading graphene manufacturer of high volume powdered graphene. As I said, 100 tonnes per annum capacity now. We're not operating at that level yet, but we've got the objective of getting up to that within the next year or two. We've had to go through a new substance registration for OH&S reasons. The last thing governments want is another substance like asbestos coming onto the market. So we've had to go through a very rigorous process of proving that graphene is not a toxic or harmful product. And so we're registered to sell in Australia, in Europe, and we're going through that process in the USA. There are very few other companies that claim to be graphene companies that have actually reached this level of compliance. One thing that we did a couple of years ago was join the Geek Engineering and Innovation Centre in Manchester. That's the home of graphene, where it was first discovered, where it was first made. And a couple of years ago, they were concerned at the university that graphene wasn't making it into the commercial marketplace yet. So they set up the Geek Centre, the Graphene Engineering Innovation Centre. We became a Tier 1 partner, and the university's brought in engineers from industry to work alongside scientists to accelerate the commercialisation of graphene. And it's already showing benefits to us. With another member of the Geek facility is Grigor, which is the largest steel manufacturer in Brazil, and we've recently signed a MOU to commercialise graphene in Brazil, but more on that later. So we didn't get to this 100 tonne per annum capacity overnight. It's taken a few years. We took it from the bench scale work in Adelaide University, where that university said of all the 50 graphite types they tested, our product was the best. We went first to a 10-tonne scale, and now we're at the 100-tonne scale. So vein graphite, that's where we get our raw material from. It's not synthetic graphite, or it's not flake graphite. Vein graphite comes in at about 97%, 98% pure carbon. We get that from Sri Lanka. We've got 2 mines developed, 2 shafts, and we're buying from the government. At the moment, we have about 500 tonnes of the material stockpiled. Our mines are on care and maintenance for the time being, because while we've developed them, we don't actually need to be drawing on that supply yet. The way it works with our process, it's electrochemical exfoliation, where we put it in a cell with electricity and dilute sulfuric acid. That excites the bonds between the graphite layers, as you see in that diagram there, and it comes out at about 70 microns. We then do further processing to come up with particular size products. Our most popular size is a PureGraph 20, which is 20 microns, but for additive to concretes and those sort of materials, we're looking at 50 microns. But that's the plant you can see there. We're very strict on quality assurance. When our clients order something, we make sure they get what they think they're getting. So the pure graph is the range, we call it. One of the issues with the graphene industry, a new industry, is who's setting the standards and who's policing the standards. It's a bit of a confused area. If it's 10 atoms or less, it is true graphene. If it's above 10 atoms in thickness, it's a graphene nanoplatelet. You do find some people who are in the space trying to confuse the difference between the two because it works to their advantage. But a graphene nanoplatelet is not as expensive. It's easier to make, but it's not going to do as good a job. So make sure if you're talking graphene that you're actually talking less than 10 atoms thick. So pure graph, we make it in sizes 50, 20, 10 and 5 microns, depending on what use you want to put it into. Our main focus today, right now in our corporate development, two aspects. One is the continuing commercialization of pure graph into a range of products that we've already demonstrated we can do. We just need to sell to more customers. The second aspect of our business focus is R&D on alternative energy applications, which involves supercapacitors, batteries, and anodes. That's something which is more speculative, more blue sky, takes longer to develop, but that's where the world is wanting more advancements. So on the commercialization landscape, we're specializing in the bulk uses, rubbers and elastomers. We're looking at automotive parts, mining wear liners, construction, and leisure in terms of shoes, work boots. We're looking at cement and construction materials. 0.08% graphene added to concrete improves the strength by 30 or 40% and reduces permeability by better than 50%. That reduction in permeability leads to less ingress of water and less concrete cancer. So it's a very important development. There's the list of materials we're making. There's quite a few. Graphene doesn't work with everything. You've got to do your work and your experimentation. Quite often, we will be working with a customer for 6 months before we can actually say, yes, the graphene does work. Then there's likely to be another 6 months of testing and repeat testing to try it under all circumstances, and then you have to deal with the engineers. At this point in time, we've got more than 70 customers that we're partway through that process. Not all of them will become real customers in buying product, but a lot of them will. So we're very encouraged by the level of interest. In terms of profitability, we are just touching on or a little bit below break-even levels on a cash basis. And we've done that with only 3 customers: boot manufacturing, liners for mining equipment, and fiberglass swimming pools, where the introduction of graphene has led to a 30% reduction in costs. So 1 or 2 more customers, and we'll be heading up towards break-even on a full cost basis, which is probably 18 or 20 tonnes per annum. We're doing 5 or 6 tonnes per annum now. The good thing is, with the 3 customers you see on that chart and anyone else we're dealing with, this is based mostly in Western Australian businesses. Extrapolate these similar products around the world and the market will be at least 20 or 30 times bigger than what we see in Western Australia. So we know we've got a clear pathway. We just have to get on our bikes, wear out our shoe leather, and hunt down those customers. So composites and plastics, there you see a boat and a swimming pool. One of the things about putting graphene into fiberglass, apart from making it 30% cheaper, is it's impervious to water. In a swimming pool, that shows itself through ingress of groundwater into your swimming pool, which gives you blistering. Water doesn't pass into a fiberglass, which is enhanced with graphene. And as far as boats are concerned, if you've got a fiberglass boat, you'll know you'll have to dry dock that for 1 or 2 months a year for the fiberglass to dry out. Well, that's not going to be an issue going ahead if you've got graphene. The boat will be lighter, less fuel consumption, all around. Apart from being cheaper to make, it's going to work better. If we go through and have a look at the products, there's a swimming pool, there's the boat, the third one on the right there, they're oyster farm units that we're producing for those units now in Australia. I'm not too sure how big the market is worldwide, but you know, we eat a few oysters in Australia, and it's showing that those baskets are much stronger and last much longer with graphene. You extend it to elastomers and rubbers. Elastomers still, it's not necessarily straightforward. There's a lot of research required, and you've got a lot of different rubber products. So one size doesn't fit all, but we are finding that the elastomers and rubbers that we do put the graphene, we're getting very significant improvements in tensile strength, elongation, and tear strength. So they're huge growth markets for the graphene sector. There we have the products that we're doing now. Boots, blue steel boots. They make the soles of the boots last longer, and they're stronger and more flexible, which is an important feature. The second picture on the left, that's a 200 kilogram liner for bucket wheel reclaimer in the mining industry. We've just announced that after a trial period, the liners last 6 times as long with 1% graphene. At the moment, the industry standard is 6 to 9 months, but we can get 6 times that life out of them. And for a huge volume business like iron ore, downtime costs a lot of money. So Rio and BHP and companies like that love it. We're also putting graphene into recycled tyre mats and conveyor belts. That's all good. The big environmental application is in cement, as I mentioned earlier. 0.08% increases strength by 30%. That can lead to a direct 30% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, and concrete is one of the biggest emitters in the world with 6% of all emissions. So that's a great growth market for us as well. We'll be putting it in pipes and slabs and in pavers and in construction once we get through all the approvals from various jurisdictions around the world. Another product that needs jurisdictional approval is fire retardancy. Apart from just the general fire retardancy that you get from graphene, we have a specific product called Fire Stop, not because it retards, because it actually stops the flames. It won't burn. Whatever you put it on, it protects you from burning. So that's a huge product to which we have global rights. R&D, we're looking at making green hydrogen. We can do it. Can we do it economically at scale? That's all part of the research. But that's an ongoing R&D project. The same with supercapacitors, as I mentioned earlier. I won't dwell on them too long. As far as financials are concerned, we are an ASX and pink sheet traded company in the USA. Market capitalization's hovering around about 120 million. We can see improvements in volume and price in recent months. That's due to much better marketing of our stock overseas. At the moment, we'd have about 3.9 million in the bank. We'll be looking to raise some money in the near term, but we've got a number of offers on the table where we'll boost our cash. Also, we've got $25 million worth of options coming due in August, so that could certainly contribute to us. In terms of directors, there's myself. I'm an analyst by training, been in the business equities for 40 years. Andy Goodwin is one of the best graphene scientists in the world, very sensible, used to be with Dow Chemicals, and we get a lot of our common sense out of his. Michael Quinn, he's an experienced corporate lawyer, dealt with a lot of companies. And our key technical people, we've just appointed Mike Bell. Previously, the CEO just retired. He was more about building the process, being able to make the product and engineering. The new CEO, Mike Bell, he's all about business development and developing sales. He didn't come on as a graphene expert, but he knows how to sell, and that's what we want to do. Paul there, he's a very experienced scientist based in Manchester, and Dave Bennett's based in our Western Australian operations. So one thing that we've announced in recent weeks, which is of great significance, is Grigor. That's a $10 billion company listed in Madrid, New York, and Sao Paulo, largest steel manufacturer in Brazil, and one of the largest in the world. We've just done a deal to give them exclusive rights to our graphene products in Brazil. They think there's an enormous market there. All the products that we've been putting graphene into, they want to do it and more. And they want to use the same sort of strategy and corporate development strategy, which has made them very successful with steel. And we should be signing the final operating joint venture agreement within a number of weeks with Grigor. But that's having their imprimatur, a $10 billion company, means that we're cooking with the right gas there. So I think that's probably getting me to the end of my time. Do we have time for questions?
Yes, Warwick, thank you so much for that presentation. We do have a few questions. Let's see what we can get in 5 minutes. So are there different levels of graphene? And if so, which markets do you focus on?
Yeah, there's different levels. We're focusing on the high volume bulk graphene. There's CVD graphene, which is more for electronics and biosensing, much smaller scale, much more expensive to make. We are focusing on the simplest type of graphene, which will have fewer regulatory or technical issues to adaptation by industry. So, yeah, the answer is yes, and we're focusing on that bulk powdered graphene.
Okay. Who are the largest players in the market, and can you catch them? If so, what's your plan to do so?
Well, we're asked who our competitors are, and without a word of a lie, Andy says, well, the embarrassing thing is there aren't really any competitors. I think what he's saying there is they're more theoretical than actual. The information coming out of the industry is unreliable. China is doing things with graphene products, but the Chinese have actually approached us because they can't get the quality they want in China. So without saying too much about other companies, most of them are still in the R&D stage. They're not at the point of selling like we are. We like to think we're the world leader, but you never know who might be lurking out there that will challenge us on that. But as far as we're concerned, we're heading the front of the pack.
So while you break even, are you looking for financing? And if so, how much and in what form, debt or equity? And what will you do with those proceeds?
At the moment, all we need is working capital. Growing business needs working capital. We don't need a lot. Our burn rate's probably $1.5 to $2 million Australian a quarter. As soon as we can get to a cash flow break even, we'll be a lot happier. At the moment, you know, we'd probably raise roughly $5-6 million from a few people we're speaking to at the moment, and that will keep us going until we get options conversion in August. And then after that, hopefully we'll be cash flow positive, and we don't have to go back to the markets continually. We don't have any big capital costs. If we would decide to expand our plant and double our production, that would cost us a few $1 million only, and the payback period will be less than a year. So it's not a very capital-intensive business at all.
So who are your largest customers? And is there a specific industry that they are buying from you for? And what do you see your customer acquisition rate going over for the next 12 months?
Well, our biggest customers are in the composite markets, fiberglass, bootwear manufacturing, and we're selling graphene for face masks, and the mining industry, liners in the mining industry, screens for iron ore plants, construction, all those sort of areas where you're looking for more abrasion resistance, longer life, better performing polymers. In terms of the growth of the sales curve, it's not going to be a straight line. It's not going to be smooth. We could find from our efforts with our people we're working with now that they might turn around and say, well, we want 20 tonnes per annum from you. When can you start to deliver? It's going to be chunky, and it's going to snowball. You know, the more people know that there is an available supply who can give them the quality that they want, the more it's going to happen. There is a bit of resistance from some middlemen, where with, say, with Rio, we provide the graphene, the middleman makes the screens, and Rio uses them. Rio wants the screens because it's much better for them, but the middleman's got to figure out how to make money out of it, because he doesn't want to go and sell something that's going to last twice as long unless he can protect his profit margins. So there's a bit of that argy-bargy that goes on, but we're breaking down those barriers, and you can't stand in the way of innovation when it's as environmentally and economically significant as ours.
Well, Warwick, this has been a great presentation, and we really look forward to your updates. Thank you so much for closing out this awesome conference we've had all day today. Thank you for your wealth of knowledge as well.
Thank you, Anna.
All right, everyone. Well, on behalf of all of us at Emerging Growth, I'd like to thank all of our presenters, all of our attendees, and everyone involved for helping make the 5th Emerging Growth Conference such a great success. Remember, there's a complete replay of this conference. It's going to be separated by company and will be made available on the Emerging Growth Conference YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Emerging Growth Conference. Make sure you subscribe there. Also, follow us on Twitter at Emerging Growth C, and we post all kinds of information on there to Twitter first. I'm Anna Berry, and on behalf of myself and everyone who made this event possible, I wish you all a great rest of your day and a very successful week. We look forward to seeing you back here very soon. Thank you all.